Calling to order the Simsbury Board of Education meeting of February 23rd, 2016. We'll continue. Public audience, well, it's a public audience? Okay. Seeing none. Board Administrative Communications, Tom? Sue? Todd?
I'm not going to get the time right. I think it's 5. There's a Unified Theater show this Thursday.
Yes,
I don't
5
know if
o'clock.
somebody- I'm jumping in on somebody else.
No, that's awesome.
Okay.
It's
Go for
a it's a great show.
Yeah.
That's this Thursday. 5 o'clock, I think.
5 o'clock.
And it's at the high school. Simsbury.
The
What is
auditorium.
that meeting, Todd?
It's,
What is this meeting you're referring to?
Not a meeting. I didn't hear him.
Unified Theater. It's
Theater.
yeah.
it's a presentation. It's a program. They'll be singing, dancing, and doing play-like activities. It'll be great. It's very uplifting and always a very positive experience.
Kids of all abilities.
It's wonderful.
That was the fastest infomercial ever.
Mike?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Lydia?
Yes, just briefly, and Tom, you can just chime in when you feel like it. We attended the legislative breakfast, the Craig Hassel legislative breakfast this past Thursday morning at the state capitol. And again, this is the time where, the superintendents and board of education members meet with the legislators. And I wish I had some great news to say about, what was discussed there, but it's about the impending cuts that, are coming down the pike, within the State Department of Education, budget, and then the bills that are coming forward and the proposed bills. But it was well attended. The questions were basically on the surface. A lot of the superintendents had, special ed, transportation. What were some of the other things that they had? Do you remember some of the other comments that some of the
Oh,
superintendents
the
had?
cap on,
Yes, and the cap, and of course ECS. So the few general things that some of the legislators, had heard, not that they heard before. So it was, it was just
The usual?
It was basically the usual, but it's important that boards of ed members and superintendents are there in presence, in Moss, to show our, unity of where we are in education. For these two
I was a little disappointed though, because I didn't think the turnout of the legislators was as significant as I hoped it would be.
Actually, this year there was
never
more.
is.
It all depends when they have it, and because it depends when it falls in some of their schedules and
Yeah.
things. But that's where we are. So last week, last Monday, in fact, I'll send you all the link. Diana Witzel gave testimony to the Appropriations Committee regarding some of the cuts. The impending cuts to the State Department of Education. So it was only about a 45-minute testimony, which is short considering some testimonies can be much longer. But I think you'd find it interesting of just some of the things that you talked about with the legislators and some of the concerns that they have. This is appropriations, so it has to go through appropriations. And then, it moves down the rank. So I will make a note to send it so you have an idea of where we are. And between now and the end of session, a lot can change, but just where we are starting from with that. The only other thing is that next Wednesday is the Day on the Hill, and that is our legislative grassroots day. So just reminding everybody if you're interested.
Is that March 1st?
16?
It's March 2nd. March 2nd, Katie will register anyone that is interested. I'll be taking the students on that day. Let's hope that, we won't have any snow. But every legislator's been contacted, so they do know of it. And the governor should be coming to speak and a few others. And then we will, have the time to meet with legislators and going on the hearing. So it will be that day again. So again, it's an important day that we are there with all the other groups too. But it's important that they know we're there on behalf of public education. That's it.
Great, thank you. Tom?
No, I'm good, thank you very much. Karen.
Susan?
Two things. Tomorrow night, the Community for Care will be having their Discovering Better Options, the Impact of Drugs on Youth and Young Adults. So this was a continuation from the presentation that Community for Care did back, I think it was in January. So this is the panel. It's going to be led by Mark Lehman, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist here. There'll also be some educators on the panel, Simsbury Police Department, and members of local drug treatment facilities who will be on the panel. So it should be very informative. That's 6 p.m. tomorrow at the Simsbury Public Library in the program room. And then the other element to share with the board is that last week we had another great SEPTO, Special Education Parent-Teacher Organization meeting. The focus of this presentation was around the planning and placement team process and the development of an individualized education plan from a parent perspective. So if you missed it, if you weren't able to attend, it is on SCTV and is currently running, so please tune into that.
To that question, will SCTV be videotaping this Community for Care?
Yes.
Oh, good.
There will be
Okay.
a representation of
Excellent.
SCTV there tomorrow.
That's wonderful. Neil?
Well, we have Unified Theater as a highlight on Thursday night at 5. At 6 o'clock, I will remind the board that the Facilities and Enrollment Task Force will be convening that evening. Probably not as spirited an event
nearly as
as
much fun.
Unified Theater, but an important meeting as we take a look at the final elementary school modulars that remain in the district. So that'll be the agenda for Thursday night at 6 in this room.
Thank you. Aaron?
Just to let the board know that the SAT, the 11th grade testing, will be next Wednesday, March 2nd in the morning. There'll be a differentiated schedule for the high school where they'll start early in the morning and the other students will come a bit later. All the testing will take place on the third floor so that we hope that there won't be much distraction for them at Simsbury High School. So this is that now, we're not doing SBAC in 11th grade, it's the SAT. So that's next week. We're also have been planning for the SBAC, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, for grades 3 through 8, which will begin at the end of March and will go through April and May. And each school is designing their schedule in which to meet the needs of the students for the SBAC. So
And the PSATs?
that's already happened.
That's
This
already
is-
done.
That's
It's already
already
done.
happened. That was in October. So this is the SAT for grade 11.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Burke?
Just one item I wanted to highlight for the board that I've been working for a period of time with Tom Cook, the town's Director of Administrative Services, on a proposed scope of work for an assessment of our town and school IT operations. And it was something that we have a proposal from Bloom Shapiro Consulting, and it's something that we intend to be moving forward with in the fairly near future. So just want to keep the board in the loop on that, and if there's any questions about the scope, I'm happy to share that with you all. The goal is ultimately to find those areas where we can realize efficiencies or economies of scale, whether it be through more joint purchasing power or shared resources. So that's
And this is on
the
top of
focus.
kind of the virtualization that we've already done? Yeah, seriously,
Yeah.
this is on top of all that?
Organizational.
Okay. Wow.
That sounds
Kind of a
good.
deep dive, you know?
That's great. I guess we have some recommended actions. We have the approval of minutes of February 9th meeting.
Matt, you don't got anything?
I'm good.
Matt, you have nothing?
Oh, I never said that. I'm sorry,
That's
Matt.
quite all right, I'm fine.
But
You get to go
he's
too,
got a
Tara.
lot, he's got a lot going
You
on.
get to go too, Tara. You get to go too.
Tom, we might send you out of the room for a minute. Matt, I'm very sorry, but
No,
you did
I
say
am-
your things are coming up.
Yeah, I'm good.
I understood, I'm sorry. I have nothing to say. Thank you very much. Recommended actions. Approval of minutes of February 9th meeting.
I'll move.
Thanks, Todd.
Minutes?
Second? Second. Thanks, Tom. Anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Burke, I believe it's up to you for the next one, the gift?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we actually have a consolidated motion here. We have two different groups that are helping to fund the first robotics program in our team at Simsbury High School. And Ensign Bickford Foundation is again for the 6th year going to donate $1,750. And I believe for the 5th straight year, United Technologies has a $5,000 grant to us. So again, this combined request is that the board accepts $6,750 from those two entities to help support the first robotics team at Simsbury High School. So we're very, very thankful for this.
It's just so great.
Support.
It makes all the difference in the world. And how many kids are on the robotics team, do we know? But more and more every year.
A good 50.
I was
A
gonna
good
say.
50.
Yeah, it's awesome.
40, but yeah.
Yeah.
At least
It's a great program.
Yeah.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Lydia.
I'll second.
Thanks. Mike, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wonderful, thank you again for all of the kids who participate and the in our community that participates. Latimer Lane roof replacement project.
So this is another housekeeping item with the state regarding our grant process. This program, I should say, this project was completed. It was about a $1.27 million project, of which we have spent all but about $100,000. And the state grant process to date has helped to reimburse the town to $325,441. Last June, as they gave us what they saw as the final amounts for their audit process, we provided them a list of information, and just recently they have gone over some further items, and they said, we need a formal vote. You did not have a formal vote to accept the project as complete by the Board of Education. So we're asking this evening for that motion. It was something that we had the final audit process with them back in September of 2014. That's what got the whole process going. So we're asking you to actually modify those meeting minutes of September 9th to confirm that the project was complete, and that will allow us to receive the anticipated final payment of $17,128 when they do the final completion.
Thank you very much.
I'll move that the Simsbury Board of Education accept as complete the Latimer Lane roof replacement project, 128-0104R, as of September 1st, 2014, and modifies its meeting minutes of September 9th, 2014 to reflect that acceptance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We're on to the final plans and cost estimate of the central school roof. Burke, is that you?
Okay, yes, we have.
Sorry. You're really busy this time of year.
Katie and I just had a quick conversation. So, wanted to welcome Dustin Lombardi this evening to give a little bit of an overview to the board regarding our upcoming central school partial roof replacement project. He's with the firm of Silver Petroselli Associates, and we have engaged them to do these drawings, which are again part of a state grant reimbursement process. And we'll be meeting, we've met once with the state, Dustin and myself did. The second meeting, the next meeting is coming up on March 3rd, and it's a pre-bid conference to review status of our plans. So both the Public Building Committee has to approve, as well as the Board of Education, the plans and the cost estimate. And you'll also see in the exhibit that there's the educational specs. I believe those were in your packet. We're handing out a copy this evening with one small revision, which we'll highlight for you. But Dustin's going to give you a nice snapshot, a color snapshot of which portions of this roof would be replaced and which are staying put. This is our first replacement of an EPDM rubber roof, a flat roof, and getting our ducks in a row for this meeting on the 9th, and then we look forward to getting the state approval to go out to bid for the work to be done this summer.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Burke, in theory, this is all in preparation for work this summer.
Exactly, to try to get out to bid as early as possible this spring. And this project is subject to local review by the building inspector in Simsbury and the fire marshal and the board of health, so this does not need to go for as extensive a state review, given the nature of the project. And there's been some changes, as you may have read about. The Department of Administrative Services has now taken over this process. And so there have been some changes, which Dustin knows extensively based on their regular dealings with the state.
Yes, so what we have in front of you is a diagram of the roof that we are planning to do. What you see in yellow is all part of our base bid contract, and then what you see in green is going to be an ad alternate. The reason we do ad alternates in projects like this is just to make sure that the budgeting comes in alignment with the funds that the town has, so it's always nice to have a portion of the roof that may or may not be done during the bid. So it gives us kind of a little bit of wiggle room depending on how the market is for that time of year with the bidding. As Burke said, we're slated to go up to the state on March 9th, and we're here to basically get your approval based on the estimate, the cost estimating that we have laid out. The plans inspection is currently under review by the local officials. We should be getting those back from them at the end of next week, hopefully, which will give us enough time to prepare all the paperwork that we need to bring up to the state. What you have here is the layout and the revisions to the ed spec that Burke just talked about. And basically, we're here just for your blessing to kind of take this forward and bring it up to the state on March 9th and have them sign off at the grants department so that we can put this out to bid. I also have with me a couple of smaller copies. I just have 2 of them. If anybody's really interested in looking at a closer look of all the details that we have laid out.
Thanks.
If anybody's really interested in the nitty-gritty
Share down
of it.
here, thank you.
That's the full detailed sheet. That's what the large size drawings is now at. Henry Miga, who's the local official, is reviewing that. I can answer any specific questions if anybody has.
Just for Burke, I mean, this is consistent with kind of what was submitted for our capital improvement plan, right?
Yes,
Okay, this
so
is-
we were funded, the funding was $770,000.
Okay.
So this actually will accomplish all that was budgeted for, and if the alternate comes in lower, even a little bit of additional square footage. But you'll see on the bottom right-hand corner of the estimate that they're estimating it'll be about $721,000, so we're within that 770, and that is inclusive of architectural and other types of fees.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry to ask such a small question, but on this sheet,
Yep.
the subtotals, the next last line is 647,356, and then the total jumps to 721.
That total is including some of these numbers over here, which are based on the alternates. Because there's an alternate area of work.
Oh,
So this number is,
that's about an additional $80,000, but shows up somewhere else on some other document.
it's showing up right down here in the corner. It's the 186, it's actually 186,000. It's for that alternate section.
Thank you.
Rents or deducts.
Yes, it's a little, the math goes from here to here to back to there.
Thank
And
you.
then this is all above the line.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any more questions?
And I just wanted to highlight that the only change in this version that was handed out this evening from the one that was in the packet was that the detailed description, the total 33,204 square feet is the same total. The first version had some detail broken out, and we were advised that it's really better to not have anything that could be different than what's in the detailed plans, the state as they review it.
That
So
makes
it's just
sense.
safest to keep description of the total square footage.
Per square foot basis.
That's the only change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have a motion?
I noticed that.
I'll move that the Board of Education approves the educational specifications, final plans, and project manual is prepared for bidding, along with professional cost estimate for the Central School partial roof replacement project.
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out tonight. and
Thank you very
Be
much.
careful on your way home.
Thank you. Safe trip.
Same to you.
We're not married that way? No. Our next presentation is do you want to do your presentation? Is your presentation now, or do you just want to approve them?
It's not really a presentation, it's just you
Okay.
can start with a motion on the non-public, and if there's any conversation after that. And then when we get to the operating, I had a couple things to frame out.
Okay. So, we're at the point where we're gonna, we would like to talk about, we already talked about the numbers, and the non-school budget has always been somewhat in place. As far as, there are not a lot of changes every year, it's pretty much, it's pretty much set in what it needs to be. So I would look to a motion for anyone who would like to.
I'll move that the Board of Education adopt the 16-17 non-public school budget in the amount of $541,237, which represents an increase of $3,500 or 0.65%.
Second?
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next agenda item, the administration recommending the following motion for the adoption of the public school budget.
And I would just say, before any conversation ensues, that last board meeting, I had an opportunity to present the superintendent's budget at a 2.2% increase. Appreciated all the questions and the dialogue along the way with our various presentations in our workshop, and just wanted to reiterate that our administration feels very good about the budget that we've moved forward and presented to you. We feel it represents a spirit of continuous improvement in this district. We've gone through the various ways we've addressed that, from staffing and special education to addressing achievement gap issues that we've shown and we've talked about, additional math support to address some of the significant changes in our math curriculum, particularly at the elementary level with coaches, and some additional staffing. In essence, 5 new positions that are offset by a reduction of 6 positions. So I think we've done an effective job from a reallocation standpoint there. But just before you consider this number and comment on this number, know that we feel this moves forward the work of the district effectively. We've sought input from our principals and have had dialogue all the way through. So appreciate all your questions and how you've pushed our thinking up to this point. And, this is your opportunity to ask any final questions, and then we move forward to future presentations, starting with the Board of Finance in early March.
Does anyone have any further questions after we reviewed it last week?
No question, just a comment. It's after 7 years of sub 1.9% budgets and budgets as low as 1.05%. This would be the 8th year, and it's at 2.2, which I think is still below the rate of inflation. So I think we've had a great budget history through some tough economic times, and I'm glad to see that the budget that we're coming forward with this year is a little more generous, emphasis on the word little, and I support it. So good work to the team.
I guess I would like to add a couple comments too. I appreciate the work, Burke, and answering all my questions, Matt, in terms of, heckling along the way. I know you guys do it with a smile and do it very professionally, and I just say thank you for that. The other thing, too, is I do appreciate your comments as you frame this up in terms of, yes, we are being responsible in terms of taking positions out where we think we can do so without impacting class size, but also adding the special ed support where it's needed in the high school when we have that large cohort going through. I think that's really important. I know how hard those folks work, and we need to give them the resources in order to do the job that they're asked to do. The other thing we've talked about offline is that all of this budget work is based on a series of estimates, and those estimates have been very well refined over the years, and I think we do the best job we can given the enrollment that we think going forward. But with all the new building that we have going in town, I think we're going to have to be really mindful of what happens come next year when the schools open up. And I think it's a really good plan. I think it's a really responsible budget, and I think again, I support it wholeheartedly. I just think we got to be watching it as we go as well.
Yeah, I support it as well. I think that each year I see a budget get presented, I think that it gets more and more transparent, explaining, what the drivers are. And I know for us, it helps, and I think for the public it helps to understand. I mean, we go through it over many, many weeks, and I know that even what people see when they're in public audience, when they see on TV, that's only a fraction of the work that goes into it. So I appreciate all the time that goes in and the dialogue. I mean, when we ask something, personally, I always get an answer. It's thoughtful. It's everything gets considered. So I appreciate all the hard work everybody does, and I think we've got a good budget.
Susan?
On the same page as everyone else, as I said at our last meeting, along with what Mike said. We've been really responsible in what we've put forward. We, budget very tightly. We are mindful of everybody's situation, and I think that 2.2 is not an unreasonable ask after 8 years. It's been a long time since we've tried, and it's needed. It's not. There's nothing. We're not tilting at windmills here. This is a legitimate, straight-on budget, and I think it's all necessary. And I don't see wiggle room, so I think I'm more than comfortable putting this forward.
Tom?
Yes, I'd like to make some comments as well. Thank you, Tara. First comment is that as a new board member, not having a history of attending and participating in the budget process, this is the first time I've been able to really be involved in it. And I want to say for the benefit of the public that might be watching this meeting that as a new board member, I've been very impressed with the process. It's a very thorough process. The level of engagement by the various board members has been pretty awesome. The responsiveness of the administration has been very, very, very good and heartwarming. And I just want to affirm this budget process. Secondly, I would like to assure the public that from my perspective, this budget has been very, very carefully vetted, not only by the administration, but also by the board itself. And let there not be any misunderstanding about that. And thirdly, I would like to compliment the district and the superintendent and his team in terms of embedding real and important strategic priorities into this budget, one of which has to do with some increases in staff, specifically applied against the technical and mathematical disciplines, which is an area where we do very well, but we can do better. And a significant part of the increase expenditure in this budget is related to strengthening our math programs in particular, and I 100% endorse that. The other comment I will make strategically is that yes, there is an achievement gap in this district, and it's a gap that our district and our board is trying to close, and the budget reflects some investments in closing that achievement gap as well. So I, as a first-year board member, fully support the process and fully support the outcome of this budget.
Thank you. Lydia, do you have anything to say? I think we've
covered it all, but I just want to reiterate, thank you for acknowledging the board members and the central office staff and also the administrators, and as a new board member, I think over the years, this board takes pride in putting forth a very responsible budget and support of the superintendent's budget. As you said, it has been vetted for quite a long time. So it's very, as a veteran board member, it's heartening to hear a new board member feel that way about the board and about administration on the process, on the budget process, and on the superintendent's, pursuing the budget that he feels best is for this district.
Great. I think my only thoughts are, we talk so much and we get so embedded in trying to save money and trying to figure out how to maximize the dollars we do have, and I think everyone here, as it's been said multiple times, works really hard to do that. But I think what we haven't said once today is that the reason why we work that hard to do it is for the success of each and every child that comes through the school. And that's our job, and that's the most important things. We don't produce widgets. We produce people who are the future of America, and we need to make sure that we're doing the right things. And our budget would have been 366 if we just went forward the way, something like that, if we went forward maybe a little higher. And we're bringing it in at 2.2, and I think that's really important to make note of. So thank you all. With that said, I would accept a motion if anyone was ready.
Move that the Board of Education adopt the 2016-17 public school budget in the amount of $67,917,962, which represents an increase of $1,464,957, or 2.20%.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Excellent. Motion passes.
Thank you
Next
for
to our
your
next
support.
step. Thank you all for all your hard work. I'd like to amend the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda for a moment. Do I have to make a motion? We can make a motion to amend the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. first? Someone had to make a
I'll
motion.
make a motion. I'll make a
Thank you very
motion.
much. We got a motion and a second. Make a motion to amend the agenda to add the cancellation of the March 8th board meeting. On March 8th, the Board of Education will present the budget to the Board of Finance at 6 PM. So we have a motion to amend the agenda. I'd like to move to, now I'd like a motion to cancel the regularly scheduled meeting. So who will give me the second motion?
I will.
What you said.
Thank you.
What you said.
Second? We got 2 seconds. We got Lydia and Mike. All those in favor?
Right.
I'm getting better at the multiple motions, but I'm not quite there yet. There's a learning curve, people.
Katie will straighten this out.
All right. I think we're on to policy.
Yes, so,
Neil.
my pleasure. So this is first of a three-step process, a first reading of some policies that came forward. At your next meeting, we'll do a second reading, which is typically where we would take any questions that board members have, but I would also invite board members, as the one who worked on these policies, along with Katie Wild, to certainly give me a call between the meetings if there are things that you want to discuss. And then a vote comes at the third meeting. So this takes a little while to get our policies passed, but hopefully this is will bear the fruits of some good work at the subcommittee level, because we had a great meeting at the end of January. Mr. Burek and Mr. Tyndall and Mrs. Selena and Mrs. Tadone are part of the policy subcommittee. We met for well over an hour discussing the 7 policies that come before the board tonight for a first presentation. So the goal tonight is just to kind of highlight what is in here. Again, take any questions you have at that next second reading or between the meetings, and then vote at the third meeting. So I'm going to outline for you. There are 7 to be considered tonight. The first one is our non-discrimination policy, 5116. There are certain policies that from time to time we seek a legal review, and this was one where we brought them to our attorneys at Shipman and Goodwin and asked for a well-timed review of our non-discrimination policy. There were some update to language about protected classes that needed to be considered in an updated policy, but more in terms of a more specific complaint procedure was really what most of this revision is about, making sure that the policy had a more detailed method of complaint. And so that's all been outlined in the administrative regulations, and that highlights the changes there. The second one is policy 5118, which is about participation in activities and athletics for magnet school students. This one reconsiders something that the board talked about a few years ago. There had been a push around homeschooled students who wanted to access extracurricular activities. It reiterates that it is the policy of the board that you need to be enrolled in the public schools in order to access the activities. But what we're trying to get on the books here is a notable exception that by the rules of the CIAC, the governing body for athletics, they have urged schools that if there are Simsbury residents who go to a charter, magnet, or regional cooperative school, that they should be allowed to participate in CIAC athletics at what would be the school they're eligible. So what this policy revision done is get that exception on the books formally in your policy for those students who might attend. We have had students in that situation, and we've gone by the CIAC bylaws, but it's better to have it in your policies as well, so that it's very clear.
One clarifier, just for understanding. So eligible to participate if the school they are at does not have.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you, yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So, and most
Not
of...
a choice between their athletic program.
Right, and most of these schools, knowing that those are the rules, choose not to run an athletics program because they know that even if they run one sport, it disqualifies students from participating in any sport back at a home school. So, and this is one where we do have Simsbury residents who are asking to do this. The third policy is a new one. There was a major legislative push around the notions of restraint and seclusion. You'll probably remember this was in response to some media stories at some state facilities where there were some inappropriate restraints, and in the last legislative session, a huge push around codifying what should be in place when students need to be restrained or secluded. This is therefore the recommended policy from CABE, the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. We would just be adopting their policy. It is lengthy when you do get a chance to look at it, covering aspects of training, reporting that needs to happen, certainly procedures, and this is new policy for our board.
As recommended by the CABE, right?
Exactly,
Is that-
as recommended by CABE. The board, we spent a lot of time at the subcommittee level on this one. The board members on that subcommittee had a number of questions about it. I answered those questions via email to them. So I think we have a good understanding of how this plays out in our district, which, needless to say, is very different than the stories that were in some of that media
Like
coverage.
the room, right? There was a room or something.
Exactly. So while the policy reads at like 10 or 12 pages of detail, it plays out very differently in Simsbury. So that is just CABE model policy that we would ask you to adopt. The student discipline policy, I actually have to give, I'm going to pass that down to the board members who, this one is going to come in two parts. We got it right at the subcommittee level. We didn't quite send it to you correctly electronically, so this is going to fix that. The part that you got electronically is in response to a legislative mandate that clarifies, again, I would talk about this as other districts, urban districts perhaps, but clarifying that you cannot expel students in preschool through second grade unless under the circumstances of drugs or weapons in the school. I can tell you that is probably unnecessary language in Simsbury, and yet the legislation mandates that boards change their policy to reflect that. So we're asking you to do that. More importantly, the paper copy that I'm making sure you have tonight for this first reading contains what we think are some important changes in the list of actions that can lead to suspension. Just to clarify that our networked resources, if there were to be somebody who did something to our networked resources, that could come under a disciplinary procedure. That had not been part of it, and this was John C. Latwinick's recommendation that we get that in our language. And so that is an important inclusion, and it also updates some other language around electronic communication. We don't have many kids who carry beepers anymore. I mean, these are just kind of getting up with the times a little bit. The next policy is Policy 5145, sex discrimination and sexual harassment. This is another one where we sought a legal review, as I said on the first one. And there were a few things that they provided some different examples of prohibited behavior under the sexual harassment laws. It also clarifies another policy that in instances where sexual harassment happens, it could also be considered bullying. So it kind of links to another policy, and that was an important addition. Again, like the non-discrimination one, again, some more specifics about complaint procedure. So that's what's in that one. We're almost there, a couple more. 5145-53 is a new policy related to transgender students. This was advice coming out of training that we went through at the Office of Civil Rights, and again, CABE recommending that boards be proactive here. So this is, again, CABE's model language that they are suggesting boards adopt to be proactive relative to language on transgender students. So all new language, we would ask you to adopt it as part of this series. And finally, 5146.2, which is the student welfare policy. This has to do with the medical screenings and vaccination rules that are in place. Some of the language around the medical screenings is just in response to legislative changes, where the screenings around when they do the eye tests, when they do the scoliosis tests, those changed slightly in which grade levels they want to do those things. So we're updating your policy to reflect the state mandate on that. Second part of that is that there was some new legislation around the procedures by which parents who had wanted a religious exemption to vaccinations, just clarifying the policy that they would have to go through, what would be the procedure to make sure that happens. And we've clarified that in your policy, how we would handle that in Simsbury if a parent came forward with a religious exemption request on a vaccination. So that's what those policies are about. Again, most of the questions, we typically take at a second reading, but if there is something tonight, I'm
I
happy.
just have a clerical question.
Sure.
And I just brought up this student welfare one. Are we to assume that wherever the printing is in bold type, that is the revised portion?
Yes,
Thank you.
exactly.
I appreciate you going through that too, Neil, because when I was first looking at the documents, it's good to get kind of what's new and required versus a revision. So
Very
that was very helpful. Thank you for walking through that.
Very
So,
helpful.
Again, please, if you do look at all the track changes and all of that and have any questions, feel free to call me. It's probably easier to have a quick conversation, but, certainly our next board meeting is the time to bring up any concerns about these policies on a second reading.
Just a quick clarification, because Matt, you said something that just kind of, I know we talked about the whole athletic exception. So a kid who goes to Suffield Regional for the agricultural program, they play sports at Suffield, or they have a choice of Suffield or Simsbury?
I believe Suffield does not have sports, so those at the...
But it's in Suffield High School.
Oh,
so-
no.
No.
They would play sports here in
Here.
Simsbury. Yes.
Okay,
It's the VOAG, right,
Because
program.
that's a
right,
vocational school.
right. So they'll put,
It's housed
okay.
there, but it's
Right.
not part of Suffield
But
High
it's
School.
not, so that, because that is
there's
a
a
question that
distinction.
has come up recently for me in a couple of
Right.
different places.
And
so.
those students have, typically, because their school day, if the sports are right after school, it's very challenging for them, but sometimes we do have sports that happen at night, and those students are able to access the, it's not happened at that school. What we've experienced in the last couple of years is students at things like the University of Hartford Magnet, the engineering school, things like that, they do want to access Simsbury sports. Their school day is over, they can get back to Simsbury, and we've had at least 2 students that I'm aware of who appealed to us under the CIAC rules to play sports in Simsbury. We deferred to the CIAC rules and allowed them to play, but really think it should be on your policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other public audience? With that said, I think, thank you all very much for all your hard work on the budget. And thank you for supporting all the next steps. We can all be at that meeting on the 8th, which will be at the town.
I will not be in attendance.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
But that's
Where else?
downstairs.
Downstairs?
Downstairs.
In the main meeting room.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Time and place. So we're all going to show up at the right time, right place.
We're going to try. I'll do my best.
Me too, likewise. I'll do my best.
I'll take a motion
So move, a motion
to.
Adjourn.
to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.